Hi everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of the Dead Film Critics Society podcast, which will probably also go up on Screenfish. But I'm here with Ethan Ng, the director and writer of Therapy Dogs, which went to Slam Dance and won the Russo Brothers Fellowship, if I'm saying that
Yes, it
correctly.
did.
Which is incredible, man. I mean, like, congrats on all of that. I'm sure, it's probably been a very wild year for all this happening. I actually, during my gap year that I was doing this program where people, like, we were supposed to try to take time away from, like, technology and phones, but when I heard there was a film being, like, made at Cawthron, I was like, okay, I'll make an exception for this. Because I'm just so curious as to what this is. And, I used the Slam Dance Pass thing, and I was like, wow, okay. This guy's got something.
Awesome. Thanks for checking it out. It was in the festival run. That's very early on. That was almost
Yeah, no, and
that was
it's like,
more than a year ago.
yeah, it's really cool to see, yeah, how the film has now been released and everything. Just all of that, and yeah, it's also during this time I just gotten more interested in actually. I think you in a far off way, you actually introduced me to Matt Johnson because I saw he was attached to your project, and I started
Oh,
checking out
wow.
more of his stuff because there was also like YouTube videos I'd watched that said his stuff was really cool, so I started checking out his stuff a lot more, and obviously I enjoyed that, and then so that obviously big fan of his, so I'm very excited for Blackberry, which you also have a small role in, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the way the show usually goes, I usually go over some movie news with my guest, and then we'll talk about the movie we watched, which you selected, which was Cleaners, which I think is a Filipino film.
Yes.
Saw, but there's been a lot of movie news recently because there's constantly more stuff coming out of CinemaCon, which is happening in Vegas. But I don't know. There's so Sony did theirs talked about their slate yesterday. One of the things is Saving Bikini Bottom, a Sandy Cheeks movie featuring
Really?
featuring
Dude.
SpongeBob, premiering in 2024. I don't know what your relationship is with SpongeBob. I feel like everyone has one to some extent.
Of course.
Yeah, I remember I got introduced to it because I never watched it myself. My friend watched it a lot, and I'd be over at his house and we'd watch it together. But
It's like my favorite anime.
nice. Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney have a R-rated rom-com titled "Anyone But You." It's
Yeah, that
been
looks like garbage.
oh, fair. I mean, there hasn't been any foot. I have no idea what to expect. It is from the director of Easy A, which personally I enjoy. Teen films are very easy for me to enjoy. I don't know, just no matter how schlocky
Hmm.
they are, they're very easy for me to enjoy.
What's Easy A? Is that the
With Emma
Emma?
Stone, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Um, Dumb Money. This is a movie they're making about the GameStop thing where
Oh,
and
this is
Paul
gonna be
Dano's
so bad. It's
playing a
gonna be so
YouTuber
bad, man.
who's putting all his money into GameStop and pisses off Wall Street guys played by Seth Rogen, Nick Offerman, and then Vincent, I don't know, is it D'Onofrio or something?
Yeah, I hate
Whatever.
it. I already hate it, man. I doubled my money from GameStop.
Oh, okay.
I bought it before Elon Musk did the shout out.
Okay. Nice.
So I was there, man. I'll be able to tell what is being stretched and what is fake. I'm sure it's all gonna be like I've hardly seen any movies that have actually captured what internet culture is, just because Hollywood is such an antagonist in internet culture.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, because I mean, these are literally the guys who are funding the movies that Hollywood makes, really. So it's, you know,
It's gonna be bad. It's like moms are gonna watch this on airplanes.
yeah. Um, I'm just curious if you've been watching things like Barry or Succession. I know those are big TV shows that are running right now.
No,
No?
I've heard it's good, but yeah, I have not seen Succession or Barry.
Okay. Or
Have
like,
you?
I've been watching Barry. Uh,
Mm.
it I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I think the direction's really interesting. I think Bill Hader definitely has something, but I don't know. This time they spent, like, whenever the show is not being dramatic, it starts to be comedic in an absurd way, but then it undercuts any of the drama that they've been doing, especially this past couple seasons. So like some scenes will just be completely comedic, and then others will start to be dramatic, and then like a dramatic like wild event will happen. But then it's so absurd that it's like kind of comedic, but then any dramatic effect they're trying to like make happen doesn't really resonate as much. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they close it out because it is the final season.
Oh, okay.
Is there any like films, I guess, in 2023 or later in the year or next year that you're really looking forward to?
That I'm looking forward to. I mean, I want to see the new Indiana Jones movie, but I am also scared because Crystal Skull was like so bad, man. Like I was like 7 years old and I already knew it was bad. It's like I have no idea what they're gonna do with the new Indiana Jones. I like Indiana Jones though. I like the original movies.
Yeah.
Those are like fantastic.
Yeah.
How about you?
I I'm really excited at the prospect of a Barbie Oppenheimer double feature personally,
Oh, right.
because Nolan's been, I don't know, he's weird. I still think his films are just fun to at least sit down and just like watch whatever spectacle he's going to put on. Even though this one seems like it'll be the least of those because, it's like mostly just about the guy who invented the nuclear bomb. Barbie looks interesting. I like that Simu Liu's in it. I'm, a fan of his as a local guy.
That was a
and
great casting choice.
It was. And yeah, he looks, the casting choices overall look great. I mean, Greta Gerwig is Barbie. Sorry, not Greta Gerwig. Directing Barbie, and then Margot Robbie as Barbie, and Ken being played by Ryan Gosling all looks really cool. And then I'd say probably Killers of the Flower Moon. Just seems like an easy one from Scorsese. That's supposed to be coming out in October, I think. So
Is it going like? Is he doing a Netflix thing again?
it's apparently getting, what was it, by Paramount is releasing it theatrically, and then it will go on because he made it through Apple, so then it will go to Apple TV later. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I remember seeing The Irishman. It had a small run at TIFF,
Right.
at the Cinematheque or whatever. So that was cool. There's another movie. Isn't there a new Sherlock Holmes movie being made?
I
With
remember
Robert
that
Downey
being a
Jr.?
thing, but I honestly don't think I've seen anything about that recently.
I love those movies. Sherlock Holmes 3, let's see what's happening. It remains. Oh, new update. Sherlock Holmes 3 remains a priority for Robert Downey Jr. Okay. I mean, it was first announced in 2011.
Right.
Oh, now the Rocket Man guy is directing it, replacing Guy Ritchie. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. The Rocketman director just made that movie that's just from Apple with Chris Evans and Ana de Armas called like Ghosted or whatever.
Oh, the one
Apparently
everyone's been
it's-
pooping on.
Yeah, everyone apparently it's terrible. I'm definitely just not going to bother with that
Damn.
personally, but yeah.
Wow.
Interesting that what do you like about those Sherlock Holmes movies? Because I thought they were just whatever personally, at least the
Dude.
first one.
The first one, when he's wrestling that big guy,
Yeah,
and he's like doing all those calculations in his head, and he freaking, dude, it's so awesome, man. And oh my gosh, I love how like dark it was too. I like the time period, and just it was like really, it's kind of like Spider-Man Noir, but like obviously a bit further back than that. Oh man, it's dark, it's funny, and I just like that kind of Sherlock Holmes. I don't like the BBC
Cumberbatch one.
Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, Elementary was I don't know. I was too young to have a real opinion on that, but I do like Robert Downey's Sherlock Holmes. That's really great.
yeah. Another discussion that's kind of been popping up recently because Ari Aster released his new film Beau's Afraid, and so people have been like asking each other who they think is better between like the three kind of breakout indie horror star directors between like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, and then like Robert Eggers. I don't know if you have an opinion on or how many of their movies you've seen.
Well, I haven't seen anything by Ari Aster, and I've only seen Nope. And then from Robert Eggers, I've only seen The Lighthouse. So, I don't know. I don't know if I can really make a call here, but between Nope and The Lighthouse, I think I would have to go with The Lighthouse.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I would. That would be my over. I haven't seen Hereditary or Beau's Afraid. I only saw Midsummer, and I've seen all of Eggers' stuff now, and all of Peele's stuff. I'd say overall, I'd like Eggers' stuff the most. I think The Lighthouse would probably be the best movie out of all of them. But I also really enjoyed The Northman. I thought it was really cool. It was kind of. Yeah, it was really cool to see a movie like that just on the big screen because it was like a whole Viking movie with all these like giant sets and action scenes, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I really like what he's going for. Like, out of all three of those directors, I mean, I haven't seen any of the Ari Aster stuff, but like, Robert Eggers seems like how do you say, obscure,
Right.
and I think it's really cool that he's really like sinking his roots into this obscure like mythology, and not just one kind. He's going for, the Northman. It's a different world than the Lighthouse. I think that's like respectable.
Yeah. All right. With that, we can probably go ahead and talk about Cleaners, which you recommended. If you want to, I don't know, mention what you knew, how you knew about this film, and I guess a little bit about what it's about.
So Cleaners is a movie that came out in 2019. It's a Filipino movie, and it's pretty much every frame of this film has been photocopied and then rescanned. So it all looks like, Xerox. Every frame is Xeroxed, and then every character is highlighted individually by their own color. And you see that, like, it's not simply just that. There's something very artistic that's happening with their choices of color on this black and white paper. And it's pretty much a high school movie. And I first found out about it in 2019 when, it was really popping off, like on Letterboxd. Everyone was like, talking about it, but I hadn't seen it, so I was hoping, for this podcast, this would finally be an excuse to check it out.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. It's on Spamflix, so
Yeah.
that's the only place it's out right now, and it only costs like €2. That's like $4 Canadian to rent, and
Yeah.
you have it for 3 days, but it's completely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing the poster for this. So, like, when I looked it up on Letterboxd, I didn't recognize the poster, but I also, like, literally knew nothing about the film. And honestly, the description didn't really tell you much about it, even other than the fact that it's an anthology. But, like, the way they tie them all together isn't, like, particularly important to the narrative. They just all happen to be, like, I guess, cleaning at the same time, or in a cleaning club, as they say. But, I don't know, I guess before I say my thoughts, what were yours on the film as a whole?
It's everything I wanted and more. It was like incredible, especially for a movie that was made with like seemingly like non-actors. Like it really seems like all these people were just like put into like a huge effort to really make something amazing. And the territory that it's going in is like I've never seen any movie that has tried to do this before. That was very ambitious and not even I would think that at the beginning the aesthetic of the Xerox print would like wear on me and just like it'd lose its shine. But what I found is that the narrative of the movie was actually really strong. And all of the chapters, I mean, in every anthology, some chapters will be stronger than others. But I found all of them to be really, really. I mean, there's something that happens at the very beginning of the movie that I literally like yelled at my screen when I saw it. And that wasn't the only moment I yelled. I yelled even louder for another moment. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like if this movie didn't have the Xerox effect, it'd still be a hit.
Yeah, no, it was very like I was a little confused personally about why they were going for this for most of it, and I think I still kind of am, but it does lend itself I think very much to like a it was taking place in like 2008 or whatever, so it's like
Mhm.
very much like kind of a memory thing, but then like it also helps you just practically keep track of the characters and what is otherwise the everything else is kind of obscured. You're only like really focusing on the people, the locations. While like they're there, they obviously get a lot more obscured by the fact that they xeroxed everything. But yeah, and you're right about those moments that just like made you yell at your screen, because I definitely felt those too, especially that one in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Just I
That how on earth did they do
I
that?
don't know what they did there, but that was I
I
yeah I
never
couldn't
want to
believe
see that in my life again.
yeah. Honestly, you kind of scarred me with that. I never thought I'd walk into that movie and see something like that. That was just insane for me. Um, but I don't know. I guess what chapter do you think was the most interesting for you?
Oh, I liked the skater kids, the punk kids chapter. I
Yeah,
love when they did their dance in front of everyone and the kids started being like, "Yes, rock on!" Oh, that was so good. There, I don't know. There were a lot of like really I don't know how to say it, but like in a lot of movies, especially like starting out movies, there tends to be like one gem moment that's just completely like sublime. And you're like, whoa. And I feel like with this movie, there was a couple. I remember, I don't remember where it was. It may have been with the chapter that I'm talking about, where I think like maybe they're all riding on their bikes or running, but they're running and then the camera just becomes so blurred or like choppy.
yeah. I think it's when they're skating away from like the police man who's like
Yes,
kicking them out of that square or whatever.
something happens with the frame rate and the shutter speed, and it just
Yeah,
becomes so like, and then the music kicks in, and it feels like you're being like put into another dimension. And there were a couple of like really sublime moments in this movie where, you know, the most you could even hope for with a movie is to have one. So the fact that this movie had a couple, at least to me, I think that's like absolutely spectacular.
yeah.
How about you? What was your favorite chapter?
Um, I think it was probably that one as well. I mean, I would. I think the one definitely got the more reaction out of me was part three with the scene we were talking about earlier. And I think, there's always usually, and I think the director captured like kind of the profound sadness that I think a lot of teens feel going through, the ups and downs of romantic relationships. I think it captures that, but also like kind of also captures like obviously that scene captures like the very desperate moment it feels like for him to like not be an outsider in a way. and
Mm-hmm.
you know, to like, and I think it personally related to me because I think like for myself sometimes I feel like there's moments when the only way I can be like feel like I have worth as a human being connecting with others when you have that like one person who you really connect with, and that gets cut off. You're like, how else do I like fit into this whole world kind of thing, especially and so that definitely had an effect on me. But I did like it did feel, I'm gonna be honest, the part two with the skater kids did feel somewhat cliche to me, just the cool kids and like the class president stoic goody two shoes
Oh,
being put
oh yeah,
together
yeah, yeah.
kind of thing, and then learning to get along. But I think overall they made it, I think, comedic enough as well, just like the whole horse thing. And then yeah, like you said, that performance where they actually do the folk dance but then give their own spin on it, helped make it more than that.
Yeah, for sure. And it went places. The story went places where I didn't think it'd go. I mean, I think one of the last chapters, we realize one of the kids is the son of the mayor in
Yeah.
that city, and it had a slight, tinge of like corruption in the town. Um, Speaking of which, it opens with him getting a BlackBerry
Yeah.
for his birthday.
Yeah.
How incredible!
Yeah, that I noted that as well. Just that was funny. But then he tosses it at the end. It gets like thrown at him when he's sitting. I think he throws it away at like the
Oh,
edge of the
no, wait,
bridge.
I think that's the Motorola, isn't it?
I don't know. I remember he threw a phone, and I assumed it was the BlackBerry because his parents gave it to him, right?
I think he got a new one though. I think his parents then gave him like a Motorola
Oh, okay.
flip phone though.
Maybe I missed
But yeah,
that.
that was a great shot because it comes out. It there's like a drone shot, and so this is the thing about this movie is that you don't know what camera it's being shot on because everything about the print process of each frame kind of masks all of that.
Yeah.
The idea of like depth of field doesn't make sense anymore because everything is in a way very sharp. And you know, so when the movie cuts to like some really like spectacular like crane shot or whatever, it could be shot on a $200 drone. All of these things are like really lent itself well to kind of the low budget, nature of it.
Yeah. No. Definitely. Also, the one other thing I liked when, yeah, it was very interesting. I feel like you could very much tell that this was like a personal film for the director, kind of looking back at probably at his teenhood and other things that he like witnessed with his classmates or potentially with his friends. And I liked the idea that he was like kind of telling the stories of his friends, and how that also included like yeah, like kind of a look into like what may be just like a larger look at like Filipino culture in like small towns where potentially it seemed like him, as if he was going to be made student like council, he would be like like actually have power to like make a decision and like change things, which seems like a foreign idea I think here in Canada. But it was interesting to see that perspective and how like the mayor had like the power to like get him out of trouble with the police and everything, but then like how their family is ultimately kind of abusing that. It was really interesting to see. And then like when he's with his friend like doing the graffiti, it, like the lyrics translated to English are just so blunt. It just says, "Run from the police, run from the police, hide, you stupid." And just pretty
Yeah, for
funny.
sure. It almost, have you seen A Brighter Summer Day?
I have, yeah. I actually recently got the Criterion for it because
Oh, nice. The
that was,
Blu-ray?
yeah, yeah,
Very nice. Yeah, it kind of, to kind of look at your youth, not just from a singular perspective, from the perspective of many, but then to not just do that, but also have like some kind of social consciousness to that as well. All of that together was very present in this movie, and it kind of reminded me of A Brighter Summer Day, which also does that very well.
yeah. No, it also personally reminded me a little bit of it almost reminded me of Linklater, with especially like even just like some of his rotoscoping films because it almost has that effect where you're like,
Mm.
it does that same thing with like memory and like imitating that, but then also it's mostly like things happen. There's like narrative arcs, but it's mostly like just kind of hanging out with these characters and just like seeing what their lives are like, which I really enjoyed that approach overall because I mean that is what high school mostly is, just like kind of hanging out. Like most kids don't, when you look back at your life, you don't really see it like a arc or anything, or like there might be one or two moments like you said where there's like significant change or something significant happens, but it doesn't really go like that most of the time.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing is just youth, or, you think about like dog days, it's just spanning time. I think what's really important about capturing that time in your life is the space in between the so-called important moments in your life, because that is something that you know you'll never be able to kind of really like. I think that's what you remember the most actually, but it's so much more of a feeling, I think, than actual like events.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I enjoyed the whole thematic presentation, just with like the idea that starting off with like these guys are cleaners, but then like the situations they get into are just like so messy, and then obviously especially the last part emphasizes that the world they live in is so messy. I mean the first part's like almost literally that, just like a girl who's like kind of clearly like a germaphobe having to kind of embrace the fact that think life is messy, you know very
Yes,
extremely so in this one. Like that's insane.
that was a
Insane the
great
things that they
bit,
do.
man. I couldn't believe that. That's not something you like. Oh, to do that in like the first 10 minutes or whatever. That's like boss mode, man. Like usually you save that stuff for like at least halfway through, but man just went right for it.
Yeah, and I mean I think the having an anthology like that obviously aids with that, but then just to think how they just set up all of this with the garden project, and then actually having this incident help her do well in the garden project is just like a kind of setup. I don't know how you think of that, honestly.
It was brilliant, man. It was, oh my gosh. What a nicely tied up story that is. Um yeah. I actually I thought she was like hungry at first and that's why her stomach was like I thought her stomach was growling.
Oh, okay.
And then when that happened, I was like, "Oh, yo, she should have just ah man, she should have just sat that one out, man."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It also, I don't know, it's sort of comments to this like peer pressure where like the reason she's about to go to the bathroom, and her like friend or the dance troupe member is just like, oh no, come on, we got to go, and then she just like never has the bravery to just like, okay, I'm on stage now, I should just leave because shit's literally about to go down, and but
Yes, man.
she does she doesn't, just because she's in front of her. There's some part of her that's like, I need to do this, but then it just goes more wrong than she ever probably was ever betting on it to
Oh,
be.
I couldn't imagine. That is like horrifying. Can you imagine if that happened?
No, honestly, like I can't really remember a time in high school where I put myself into like in front of that many people. Really, I never really like was in any performances or speeches like that. To have something like that happen would just be insane. I don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
frankly can't even
definitely.
fathom it.
And the fact that she decided to drop it there in the garden,
Yeah,
you know. Wow.
yeah,
Honestly, if I knew it would have made it grow that much, I would have shat in everyone's plants.
yeah. No, it's a really funny idea that just works overall for the story. And I mean, I don't know. And then there's the ending, which, you know, just yeah. I mean, it is. I don't know what you thought of it, but
I thought it was like a great way to tie everything up. Like, I was kind of hoping for a moment like that to be done with the highlighters. And it just, I think what's really great is that this movie knew what what it could do with that like element, and it didn't just treat it as a novelty. Like there are several moments throughout the movie that kind of show, I mean, when those that couple are on the motorcycle or the bike together and their colors,
yeah,
switch over each other and mix, and like it's just beautiful. I love how like I bet you can watch that last sequence 100 times and find new little details. I think the really beautiful like meta of this whole idea of doing the highlighters and printing it over is that you're looking back at moments with like and scrutinizing them to a certain degree. You're really looking hard, and you're like what they're literally doing is tracing over, nearly every moment, and that's kind of when you think about regret and you think about your childhood or whatever, there's a similar performance that's happening in your head. And you can tell, like, the difference between seeing this as just raw camera data, as a video, whatever, on your screen versus a bunch of frames. And this movie doesn't, by the way, this movie doesn't play at 24 frames a second. I think it plays at something a bit less. It's a bit choppier than that.
yeah,
But you realize that, like, you're experiencing time much differently. You're experiencing time through the lens of someone looking and studying every single frame of it meticulously. It certainly has an effect on how you watch the movie.
yeah. It is sort of like the director almost filmed this like, it's obviously has a narrative style, like, that you see in most like films, but then it also feels like he's going back over it like and treating it like a documentary, like of his memories, and then like yeah, like you're saying, like highlighting the most important people and the most important moments, and then like especially the end, it's like kind of just showing that being a teenager is just a mess, right? And giving the characters a moment to just let that all out is, very touching and very feels profound. And yeah, and like and the whole film goes along with that by like showing like some of the gross and like painful things that teens go through to try to find out who they are, and like they still imitating the ending, like the kids like literally pissing on the wall at the end, and, like destroying chairs and everything, and it's just like,
Oh my god.
you know you got to think that like, people feel like they want to do that sometimes, but they just don't. And teens want to even more so, but they also just don't. But then they have like this space where they can, and then also they kind of save themselves by the end by just being able to like clean it all up and kind of leave it as it is.
Yeah, that last shot. Empty classroom, everything in order. Ross right in the center of the classroom. Yeah, man. I mean, that's all of my favorite stories about being young have always been about like confusion and anguish and no real answer to that.
Yeah. And I think that's true. I think that's just true about life, is that, there's never like a clear defining answer to any of the problems that we go through. So we kind of just have to take it as it is and kind of embrace it for what it is and all of its messiness. And I think, yeah, the director definitely, takes a unique approach to kind of express that visually. both through like the highlighter stuff and just like how they made the film as a whole.
Hmm. For
Yeah.
sure. And you know, I think that theme is even more so because I mean, most I'm gonna say a good majority of people on this earth have like lived through their teenage years. And so the fact that time will pass, like this will pass, is already kind of known as we're watching this. So I think the catharsis or like that deep truth is already like kind of in ourselves because a lot of us have already lived through this thing. Um, and I think that's maybe why, I don't know, stories about young people and, you know, just letting that breathe and not trying to like mend it artificially works so well. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think teen films often highlight, just a point of trying to find identity and all the struggles that people go through to find that. But I think it may be just that it's like the peak of that. Like when you're a child, you don't think you need to like be someone or like know who you are really. You're just a kid. And then as an adult, at some point, you probably think you need to like figure out who you are and just like set in, follow that path. But I think, even as adults and like for people who've lived past their teen lives, they're still like, wondering if what identity they kind of chose was the right, like they look back and think, is this what led me to this? Is this why I live like this now? And does that even make sense? Especially with, a good amount of people just maybe not feeling good about their lives sometimes. And so it's very easy to look back. People do that with their childhood too, but I think teen films, it's like the first time you're actually like thinking about it. And that continues for like the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, well, you put it perfectly. Um, yeah, it's an endless box of mysteries. Always, when I think about writing, I always go back to my memories because there's just so much that to be uncovered in that, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really cool that, especially like this, that that filmmaking can do that, and that this director was able to probably show like, either different parts of himself through this film and how he struggled with that, or just like that of his friends or people that he witnessed that he thought were important for tackling this idea. You know, it's really, it's particularly cool because, I haven't really seen like a teen anthology film, but he's like really able to like treat these characters like they're like just as important as the other, and really make their stories like important to you within that short amount of time that you're with them, and then still tying that all together.
Mm-hmm. And this is his first movie, and he hasn't made anything since. I have no idea what he's up to, but I'm surprised. I'm surprised that this was kind of seemingly like an underground hit, because I feel like this movie could really have gone far, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I do think maybe the style makes it seem like it has to instantly be like this kind of underground thing. But yeah, I think the and some of the places it goes will probably like be too weird for people. But I think the feelings and the ideas it's going for very much would resonate with almost anyone. It's probably why it has a very high letterbox score and has like kind of this pretty good acclaim from most people who've seen it.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen it in on a big screen or in 4K because man, even I don't no offense to Spamflix, but I don't even think they could have handled like the amount of like detail in every print. Um, but yeah, it's very meticulous. And did you watch the extras on Spamflix too?
I did not actually know.
So one of the extras is kind of showing someone like getting a delivery from the print office or whatever of like all the frames,
Right.
and he's carrying it like 1,200 frames at a time, and I think there are 40,000. So it's like a big ass like stack of paper, and this is the photocopied one, and then he has another one of like stuff to like highlight, or I think the highlighter copies. So it was like a group, I think of like six folks that were all just highlighting, you know. And it looks like they're watching like Dave Chappelle's stand-up special as they're all just highlighting stuff. And not only do they highlight it, but they're actually crinkling the paper as well,
Oh,
which is crazy, man.
yeah.
So crinkle the paper and then flatten it out and then scan it.
It feels like it very much, yeah. And I thought of this like it very much has that time capsule feel, like something that's kind of been like stored away, and then they like brought it out, and then the director's like highlighting like those moments, those people that like really matter to what I guess he thinks like growing up is all about. And I think it's very easy to relate to.
Yes, and it just makes you think, especially with those three kids, how oh man. I think because the internet is like definitely more present in our lives now, that like this idea of like alt kids or goths or whatever, it's become much more mainstream. But it's so like the way it's presented here, they're really like losers,
Yeah, yeah,
Um, interesting. It's just interesting.
yeah. I don't know. I would agree with that only because like with the internet, it's so much easier. I think to like it's so much easier to be honest in a lot of ways. It's so much easier to like be like try to find like comfort in being this niche version of yourself, right? So for a lot of kids, that ends up being punk or whatever they think defines that like kind of lifestyle for them, and they'll find people online who have the same thing. They might find someone else at their school who finds that thing, who's like going along with that thing, but they would only be comfortable saying it over like a text message or whatever, right? As like as opposed to like maybe already like having this like group of people you hang out with and that being who defines you. To like step out of that, I think is very scary for kids. And so
Oh yeah,
they,
I couldn't imagine being like an alt kid before like, you know, Reddit being popular or whatever. Or like just can you imagine just having a BlackBerry, man? And like trying to like being that like niche or whatever and like being in high school, that must have been terrifying. You'd have to be insane.
yeah, and I mean some kids obviously were, but yeah. I don't know. I think many would describe your antics and therapy dogs as such, but you know,
Oh, as insane?
yeah, a little bit. You know,
Yeah, though that it was kind of insane. But I think that's an interesting thing too because I think I mean, I don't think our day-to-day lives were always like that,
right?
but I do think when it comes to like filmmaking, you know, there is like this thing we call spectacle
Yeah,
that's been around ever since elephants have been balancing on, rubber balls or whatever in circuses. Um, so yeah, we definitely amped it up for therapy dogs for sure. But yeah, that was a crazy time.
All right. Well, with that, probably I have a couple questions about therapy dogs, but
Sure.
yeah. I guess just for me, I honestly didn't get into film until probably after you finished most of this movie, because I kind of got into film more during the pandemic when I had like nothing to do, and that's when I started like kind of. I think before then, the only movies I would have really seen is like, the newest stuff from like Marvel and Pixar, and so I started like exploring outside of that, and that's when I really got into film. Because I was in a sci-tech program, but it's weird because I was in a sci-tech program, and then I was always thought I was gonna be like a lawyer, and then I dropped out. Yeah, but then I dropped out of
Wow.
sci-tech, and I got into film. So I applied for law stuff, but I also applied for film. And then I got into York for screenwriting. I was like, okay, you know, I just felt like I wanted to try it out. But I was curious when you first got into film, or like filmmaking, or was it like kind of the same time? I don't know.
I got into filmmaking probably like in grade 7, but it was kind of because originally I wanted to make like YouTube videos. Kids don't know about movie making. We watch YouTube videos
That's
first.
true.
So I wanted to do like skits back when like skits were a thing. Oh boy, like Niga Higa or Smosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to do that, but then obviously, I got introduced to like movies that my dad watches, and then obviously you go on the internet and then you find stuff, and it's just wow. I had no idea that movies could be so personal, and of course, I think by me going down certain rabbit holes and watching like movies that aren't just meant to make hundreds of millions of dollars, that really made me love movies a lot. Yeah.
Because I was also curious what the actual budget of Therapy Dogs is. Is that like something you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So it costs $10,000,
Okay.
which is pretty much, in my mind, like that has always. They even call it the $10,000 movie.
Right.
With Clerks, The Dirties, Chris Nolan's following. I thought that would be like a good number, and that pretty much made me buy my Ursa Mini Pro, which was the cinema camera.
Okay.
And once I had that, I was unstoppable.
Because I know you've talked in a lot of interviews about how like I basically used my college fund to like make this movie. I like at one point where you're like I can't go to college. I'm not going to college. I'm gonna like make this movie and just make it as good as it possibly can.
Yes. Well, I did want to go to York for film because Matt Johnson and Matt Miller teach there. Are they your teachers, by the way?
No, I haven't heard anything about. Honestly, like I know Matt. The only thing I know, they mentioned them in the orientation day, and their names are on the website, and Matt Miller's email is on the website, but like that's it. I have not heard a peep about them since.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what they're teaching now, but yeah, I did want to go, but then also I knew that like it was very important to make the first feature and to just make, just to make it. You have to make the DIY, the credit card movie, and did. I just wanted to go all in. I didn't want to wait for like film school. I didn't want to become jaded. I didn't want to think about homework assignments, you know. Yeah, it was a clear cut choice for me.
And I don't know if anyone's asked you this about how your parents reacted to all those decisions that you made going into this.
Oh, they were horrified. It was absolutely bad, and but I think the thing is that you have to, make your own decisions, and the most, at least for me, the most my parents can do is just like be incredibly upset and discouraging of it. But that's not so bad,
Yeah.
because if you're really gonna do it, you'll do it. Like they can't like handcuff you.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, it's been interesting to me being at York and like for me personally, I'm in screenwriting, so it's a little bit different, and we've kind of been told that in the future we won't really be directing anything because in theory we give it to the production students, and then only like what, a quarter of them will make movies next year, and then probably even like half that by third and fourth year when they're closer to like making, I guess, like half an hour short films or whatever. Which I think personally for me is okay. Only because I think for them, a lot of them have, I think, that same mentality as you, where they just like, a lot of them are really annoyed with the fact that they're being like graded on their films, and they have to think about like that academic part instead of just like trying to make the best movie they can and just like not worrying about what the professors think, but like they have to, obviously. But yeah, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what they do later. But for me, I don't know, I personally am good with the like the homework and everything, but I personally found like when I was making, because they did put us in a filmmaking class for this year, but I found as I was making it that like I really didn't enjoy making it, having to like, you know it has to be graded and everything, and like making it for school. So, but
What? So when you write, you just like to write without the knowledge of, or like the burden of production being like, down the line for you.
in theory, yeah, it depends on what I'm writing, because like, obviously with some things it's like I'm not going to be able to make this, so hopefully maybe someone else will be able to, or with some, obviously with it being school and everything, there are certain specifications all these films are going to have, like next year they're going to be like 10 minutes, only like a couple, like 2 or 3 locations or whatever, right? And so I'm probably going to make a script for that. I don't know if my whole heart will be in it. I don't know if it'll get chosen, because like we get like half, like apparently half the scripts will come from screenwriters, half of them will come from the production students. But I mean, in some ways that's not as important to me. I don't know. And personally, I'm still like stuck between, I'm not sure for sure if I want to like 100% go all in on being a screenwriter. I also really enjoyed like being like writing about film and film criticism and everything. So, but yeah, I was also curious like what Matt, like what was their pitch for, like, because I'm assuming they told you about York, but like what were they talking about when it came to that?
Well, they just said, yes, Ethan, a lot of your judgments about film school might be correct, but you get an opportunity to fail a lot, and you get to fail within this building, and by the time you actually get to making something serious, you won't make those mistakes. Yeah, they didn't say that, going to York would strip me of my individualism. I mean, it's certainly a fight.
Yeah.
And I think you can still go to York while still kind of, keeping yourself. But it will be bloody. Certainly will be bloody. And, yeah, you got to be strong for that. I know a lot of people that go to York and they come out of the program not even willing to make movies anymore.
Well, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what my, it'll be interesting to see what my class thinks will think when we all graduate, especially like, I don't know, in some ways we're in a unique position as screenwriters because we technically have a whole different program, but we're also tied to like the film production students. And, part of them, I think, just has an ego of being in film production, because then there are the film media arts kids who are like making like, I don't know, like stuff for like VR and choose your own adventure, like those types of stories. And they all want to be in film production. So then there's like part of them is only already vindicated by being in production. But yeah, I don't know. It'll like, and so in some ways I feel like I'm just kind of witnessing what they're gonna do, and I have no idea what they're gonna think of what they make or what they're gonna make. So,
well, this is the interesting thing about film school, because what film school does is it splits everything up You have screenwriters, directors, cinematographers, and all of
Yeah.
those. With Therapy Dogs, I pretty much did all of those things, and I don't think the movie would be the same if it was like segmented to so many different people. This movie is kind of like a real DIY movie, and I just hope that when you go to film school or whatever, that you don't have the mentality that you need to hand your script off to someone for it to be made, or that you need someone for something to happen. Because, like, you can put on as many hats as you want and let that be a part of your artistic process.
Yeah. Appreciate that. I was also wondering, have you ever thought of yourself as like a Canadian or Asian filmmaker? Like, just ever thought that like that's your label, or like have people who've like watched your movie thought or like talked to you about this, like talked to you, like labeled you as that?
I mean, people do talk about me in that context sometimes. But for me personally, I mean, I don't know. I think, I mean, we haven't had, Therapy Talks didn't really have any government funding.
Yeah.
So, Canadian, I mean, I don't know. Is McDonald's Canadian? Because they're the ones that paid me so I could save up for my camera, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and, you know, Asian, uh, it's true, I am Asian. Um, it's not really something you know, I don't know. For me, my home is like this basement that I'm in right now. My parents are there. you know, I don't know, man. I think the one thing I can say is that like in terms of like Mississauga and the suburbs, I that's something I could like say that I've artistically, put my flag in the ground for,
Right.
because this movie or Therapy Dogs is about like just that suburban dread, and Mississauga is like huge,
Yeah.
and it's like a mega version of that, and I'm very happy that this movie takes place in Mississauga rather than it taking place in Toronto.
Yeah. No. And obviously that was some of the headlines that I think my parents actually first saw them about, like a Mississauga kid who got into slam dance or whatever.
That's awesome.
And that was cool. How have people at Kotha reacted to the film? Have you talked to anyone who was in the film who didn't really know or anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny. Some screenings, kids come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I was in grade 9 when you were filming that. I remember you walking around the hallways, and it's great to kind of say hi." And the teachers don't remember. Like only a couple of them were like saw the news. I think most people at Cawthron just know that there was a movie that was made. But in
Right.
terms of like, what the name of that movie was or who that person that made it was, just no clue. But also, and then obviously there's some haters at Cawthron, some teachers,
Oh,
um, but I don't know who exactly they are. But of course, teachers just gonna be like that, you know?
yeah. I mean, both my parents are teachers, so
Oh,
there's
I
just
see.
that funny fact. But yeah, no. And it was cool for me though, just because I could recognize, like, I worked with Curtis Clean Slide,
Yes, you
who's in
did.
the film, and that was really cool to see.
How did you work with him?
We worked together at the camp I've been working at most summers, which is right here in Mississauga at my church, running like a local day camp for the community. And so I worked with him 2 years through the pandemic, and then just last year was his last year he was going to be working with us when we went back in person. But and
Does
he's
he
always,
know he's in the movie?
I don't know. I don't think, did I ever ask? I don't know if I ever asked him. if he knows
Wow,
he's in the
dude.
movie, because he does, like,
Freaking
he's in the
sings rock.
trailer, and
Yeah.
like he filmed that whole big prom thing that he did,
Oh my
um,
god.
and which was cool to see. And no, I think he showed up at least a couple of times when you were like, I think when you were looking at filming like people like with their like university sweaters or whatever, and like
Yeah, yeah, I
that
think he
around
was there
graduation
too.
time, yeah, which was
Wow, what a crossover.
yeah, no, but that was pretty cool to see. Yeah. Um, was there a part of the film that you're like almost most proud of like capturing, and maybe or that you didn't really plan for either?
Well, uh, I mean, I just really like how the intro shaped up, like the us dancing on the roof of the school
Right.
with fireworks. That's such a like, I mean, when you watch it in the movie, like it is cool, but like the reality of it, the like conceit to go up on the roof of your high school. See, it's not even like an elementary school; those are smaller.
Yeah.
High schools are like cops, go around those, and to like launch fireworks and dance in like sketchy like robber masks. Like that is insane. What an act of rebellion that is. Um, I'm glad it turned out like the way it does because every time I watch it, like I can't take my eyes off. That's actually something that I think was quite magical, at least to me, while we were filming it and then watching it.
I think personally, the most insane thing I saw you guys capture was that one party with the Samsung smart fridge
Oh
with that
yes,
and the explicit material on it.
dude,
Um,
isn't that something our only our generation can have, man?
yeah, I was like, man, that's crazy. That was pretty crazy. Um, so you won this Russo Brothers Fellowship. I was just curious how talking to them and that whole experience has been.
It's been really good. I mean, I was able to go to the Gray Man premiere and say hi to Joe and Anthony Russo. And, I'm pretty much, right now, I'm a part of the Storytellers Collective. So all the people, not just the Slam Dance winners, but from their various other like competitions and fellowships, um, we're all a part of the same group. So I think like today they're doing the Citadel premiere or something in LA,
Okay.
and we were invited to that. Obviously, I can't go because I'm here in Toronto, but they've been super supportive. I mean, right now I'm just kind of getting started on the second movie because I've done everything, nearly everything in terms of packing things up for distribution, which took a lot. So now that that's finally wrapped up and the lawyers are paid, oh dude, you wouldn't believe how much this movie actually costs like after making it to like distribute it. But I'm gonna say like more than three times
What the
I
actual budget
originally.
was? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's kind of insane, dude. But
Was
yeah,
it
now that
like
that's
the clearance with the music and like all the school being filmed and like all of that,
uh
or
yes, yeah,
okay,
clearance stuff and then legal stuff and but like you need someone you to pay for like subtitles. It's crazy.
right? Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, we're back on track now with Agbo and yeah, I'll hope to go to LA soon so I can meet them at their HQ.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I mean that kind of leads into like what your plan is because I saw you're potentially making a second film about I saw a log line that was about a guy in his 20s living through the 2020s. I don't know how
Sure,
true
yeah.
that is, but
Yeah, that's the next movie I'm working on. It's not just one person though. There's three characters this
okay,
time. So instead of me and Justin, there's one more person.
okay,
And yeah, I mean, it was fun to make therapy dogs and to kind of like look at this little bubble of, this high school and this neighborhood, but I think as soon as you graduate, the world really opens up, and there are many things you can do with that.
Yeah.
One thing this movie is not going to be is it's not going to be a movie about being a stressed out college student.
Yeah.
Just as much as Therapy Dogs wasn't a movie about being a stressed out high school student. I think there's like a vision of what youth is that isn't always lived out, but it's always like a very precious idea that we have. And I want to see where that takes us, like as we're in our early 20s right now, you know?
All right.
It's called A New Age.
Oh, okay. All right. Awesome. Well, here's here first. Probably. I don't know. Yeah. No. Like, are you still writing that, or like?
Yeah, I'm still writing. I mean, the story's pretty much done. I just gotta like, you know, clean some things up here and there.
All right. Well, that sounds good. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk to you about today. So,
okay, well, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
I really like doing the movie news update because I've never actually done that before on the podcast, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to see what's happening in the world of film, even if isn't always necessarily good. You know, just because. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the bigger films are doing, but also what's happening here in Canada with everything. But you know, and obviously you're kind of a part of that, and so
I'm honored.
It's always curious.
Therapy Dogs is on streaming, or sorry, not on streaming. It's going to be on Crave in June, mid-June.
That's funny. I just unsubscribed from Crave, but.
It's also going to be on YouTube and Google Play,
yeah,
and Apple TV. It's already on there for on demand and to rent. And the movie we just talked about, Cleaners, is available really cheap on Spamflix.
Yeah,
you won't regret it. You'll be shocked twice at least.
For sure, definitely. All right. Well, again, thanks, Ethan, for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this has been the Dead Film Critics Society podcast, and we'll see you guys next time. See you guys.
I never want this day to end.